Hi friends, Katie from Life Between Words here. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and if you are not new and returning, welcome back. I'm so happy to see you, or not really see you, but chat with you about what I read in the month of October. My October ended up really not being a great reading month for me, partly because I was reading two huge books that I didn't get through at all, and partly because I read a lot of thriller and horror, way more than I usually do in a month, and I got so burnt out that by the end of the month I really wasn't reading a whole lot. I just wanted to fill myself up with things that made me happy and laugh. So I was watching a lot of Gilmore Girls, I was watching a lot of Friends, I was watching a lot of How I Met Your Mother, because those sitcoms, well, Gilmore Girls isn't a sitcom, but you know, the other ones, the other shows, they just made me feel happy, and that's really what I needed. And then also at the end of the month, Julie from A Girl in a Book came to visit me, and it was so much fun, and I didn't get any reading done while she was here, but that's okay because we had such a good time, and it was the perfect way to end the month for me. I'm going to talk about what I did manage to read. Most of the books I managed to read, I read during Spookathon. I read 3 complete books during Spookathon, I think, which was pretty good for me, especially considering those 3 books made up the majority, the bulk of what I read for the entire month. So the first book I read this month was Fatal Grace by Louise Penny. This is the second book in her Armand Gamache mystery series. I loved it once again. I loved returning to Three Pines. I loved the cranky but wonderful characters that populate this beautiful, sweet town in Canada. I loved Armand Gamache. I love that the backstories of these characters, particularly Armand, are starting to thicken, and I know that that is going to carry through into the next books. The mystery was good. I didn't predict the ending, although I could see perhaps maybe people who love mysteries, maybe the ending would be predictable, or who read a lot of mysteries, but I still really liked and enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. Another thing I loved about this book was that it took place during the Christmas season. I kind of wish I would have read this in the month of December just because of that, but it felt very Christmassy, the atmosphere, and you know, even if the mystery wasn't perfect, it's everything else about these books that make them so very, very worth your time to read. I also read a little bit of it. I didn't get through the entire book, but it's 1,400 pages long, and I read like 500 pages of that in October, so that's like a book in itself, or it's maybe even like 2 books, depending on how long the book is. So even though what I completed wasn't huge, what I actually read was pretty significant in terms of page count, I think. So look for it and the third book in the Farseer trilogy, which I started but also didn't finish, in my November TBR/November wrap-up. The next book I picked up, I buddy read with Stephanie from That's What She Read and Julie from A Girl in a Book, and we picked up the horror novel The Ruins, which I don't have a physical copy of. I just returned it to the library late, and I have not looked at how much I owed the library my late fee, so looking forward to that. But anyway, I read this with those 2 ladies, and I really enjoyed it. The premise is very fantastical, would never actually happen in real life. The Ruins is about 2 couples who are down in Mexico on vacation, and they find themselves on the hunt for these Mayan ruins. They end up on this hill, and there are sort of animate, flesh-eating plants, which is a little bit far-fetched and unbelievable, and you know, that part was never really very scary to me, because it was like, that would never happen in real life. You would never be trapped by an animate, flesh-eating plant. It's everything else that really makes the book so unsettling. It's the human interaction, it's the human component. Stephanie and Julie both loved the ending, and I'm not going to say what happens. I'm just going to say I was less enthralled with the ending than they were, but I still really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, or maybe 3.5. I don't remember. The writing wasn't spectacular, but it was really fun, and it explored some interesting themes, and there were some very unsettling, kind of gruesome-ish moments. Then came the Spookathon. I did film during the Spookathon, and I intended to make a Spookathon vlog, but it just didn't end up coming together in time. So if you would still be interested in seeing that, I can still edit it and put it together. So let me know down below if that's something you'd still like to see. I know it's way past the time, so it may not be relevant anymore, and that's okay too. I ended up reading 3 books for the Spookathon, and I thought I was only going to get through 1, so I was pretty pleased with myself about that. The first book I read was right after The Ruins, and because of that, I just continued to read with Stephanie and Julie, and so we read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I don't have a physical copy of it, it's on my Kindle. So here's a picture. This was my first Agatha Christie, and I really, really enjoyed it. You can tell that she's sort of the queen of mysteries, and that a lot of mysteries that have come since Agatha Christie's mysteries have taken a lot of influence from her. I could even see some of the ruins being influenced by And Then There Were None in particular, because in And Then There Were None, it's a group of people who all get invited to this island, and they are unable to leave this place, and they start to be picked off one by one. The whole time you're wondering, okay, they're on this island, they're the only ones there, clearly someone among them has to be the killer. And the brilliance of this book is that you never know who it is, and I think Agatha Christie does just a masterful job of keeping you guessing the entire time. At one point or another in the book, you suspect everyone. When the killer is finally revealed, you think to yourself, oh, clearly that's who it was the whole time. But up until that point, you just are never sure. And that is masterful on Agatha Christie's part, to be able to make the killer both completely unpredictable, and then also, once you know who it is, to look back on the book and say, oh, I can see exactly. Why didn't I get that? It's so obvious. And yet it's not when you're reading it. So yes, really, really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. And I'm excited to read more Agatha Christie. Next, I read Intensity by Dean Koontz. I cannot really say that I enjoyed this book because it's very disturbing. It's basically about a serial killer. It alternates between the perspective of the serial killer and then this woman who is trying to save this young girl who is in the clutches of this serial killer. It's very unsettling, it's very disturbing, and because you're spending time inside the serial killer's mind, it's just not a place that you really want to be, and yet it's like looking at a car crash. You can't look away from it. It's very riveting, but it's not very fun. It starts off with a bang, like in the first chapter it gets going, and the book does not let you go until the very end. There's not a moment in the book where you're able to take a breath and calm your heart rate and just let go a little bit and let the story ride out. It's just like one thing after another. It's very fast-paced. The writing was meh. It was nothing special. But the story itself, it was very intense. This book was completely aptly named. If you're looking for a good serial killer, thriller, horror novel, this might be the one for you. And then finally during Spookathon, I read Byrd Box by Josh Malerman. This was easily the best horror novel that I read this month. I loved it. It just hit so many of the right buttons for me. For those of you who don't know, and there probably aren't many of you because this is a very popular book on BookTube, it's about a woman who has lived through some sort of apocalypse in which there is something out in the world roaming the streets, and if you see it, you basically become mad, start killing everyone around you, and ultimately yourself. So people have to stay indoors, and if they do venture outside, they have to go blindfolded, which just creates a whole bunch of drama. And what Josh Malerman does so very, very well is using your imagination, because you never know what it is you're going to encounter when you're blindfolded. So this woman has to leave her shelter and find new, safer shelter with her 2 small children. So she travels down this river with them and encounters a lot of scary, unsettling things. I love that post-apocalyptic books explore really interesting themes about human nature. The stories are often a little bit about the scary world that surrounds you, the devastation that you're left with, and how the world fell apart. But they're a lot about humans trying to cope with that devastation, and they explore themes like, what is it that drives you to either keep or lose your humanity? And also things like, how do we maintain our hope when the world has fallen apart? What does hope look like. This book was scary, but not an in-your-face scary. It was a scary that I feel like a lot of people can probably handle. It does play with your imagination, and I have a pretty vivid imagination, so there were some scenes that really had me on the edge of my seat. But for the most part, what was scary was the atmosphere and the unpredictability of humans. It's usually the humans that end up being the most scary, not the forces outside of humanity, which are still scary, but just not as scary. I'm pretty sure that I gave Byrd Box a 4 out of 5 stars. It was very good. And that's it, you guys. That's all I read in the month of October. I will be back soon with my TBR. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and keep on filming. I hope you guys had a great October. I'm really looking forward to November and more of the holiday season. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Halloween was fun. I wanted to dress up my little boy as Marty McFly from Back to the Future, but total mom fail. His costume didn't arrive in time, or one part of his costume. I was putting it together myself, and I was waiting for a jean jacket to arrive because Marty McFly wears a big puffy red vest and a jean jacket and a white, sort of a white and black collared shirt, and then like a little maroon shirt underneath. I had everything ready except the jean jacket. It didn't arrive by Halloween, so we had to improvise. But you know, he wanted a moose, and he was so cute, and people still seemed to love it. So, and he had a great time.